Hello students, welcome to IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the 50 years of Sikkim's integration or merger with India. It was on the May 16th, 1975, Sikkim became one of the state of India, and since then every year, May 16 has been commemorated and celebrated as the Sikkim's State Day to basically celebrate this particular merger and integration. Now, it is in this context, 2 days before, the Prime Minister of India has greeted the people and citizens of the Sikkim, and he has said that Sikkim is associated with serene beauty, rich cultural traditions and industrious people as such. Because also we talk about from geographical perspective, Sikkim lies in something we can call as the lap of Himalayas, and that is how we can understand it has been basically bestowed upon with the serene beauty as such. Plus, it is a region where you have multiple ethnic groups that live in harmony and they celebrate their different cultural festivals as such. May the people of this beautiful state continue to prosper as such. So, in this video, we will try to understand briefly about the merger of Sikkim with the India and how this entire event has unfolded. So, we know that if we talk about in the initial stage, the Sikkims Kingdom was set up somewhere in the year 1642 when, according to one of the account, the Tibetan Lama, 3 Tibetan Lamas were there. Lama, as you know, that in Buddhism they are considered as the spiritual guide, or what you can consider as in Hindi, we can refer them as Guru. So, Guru or spiritual guides in the Buddhism are referred as Lama. So, Tibetan Lamas consecrated Phuntsog Namgyal, as you can see from this particular image here, as the first ruler of the Chogyal dynasty of Sikkim, and this rule of Chogyal dynasty continued almost for 333 years until 1975 as such. So, till the arrival of British, Sikkim, we can understand, was a kind of kingdom that was independent and sovereign in nature. After the arrival of British, they wanted to ensure that the interest of British is not marred by the Chinese kingdom as such, and that is why they considered Sikkim as a buffer state, and they took a lot of measures to ensure that there is a semi-formal relationship between the British and Sikkim rulers as such. Now, in this regard, there was a war fought between these rulers of Sikkim and the British called as Anglo-Sikkim War of year 1861. And as per the conclusion of Anglo-Sikkim War, the British and Sikkim rulers signed a treaty called as Treaty of Long. Now, as per this particular treaty, British had control over the Sikkim, but it was not officially under their rule. However, at the same time, British influenced, or what you can call as indirectly used to influence the decisions of Sikkim to ensure that the security of British is not threatened, and that is why Chogyals were able to continuously hold the power even during the British time. Now, next important development happened in the year 1890, where the Calcutta Convention was signed, and here the parties were British Party represented by Viceroy Lord Lansdowne, and then Qing, China's imperial associate resident who was resident in Tibet, and then Sikkim as such. And this basically treaty becomes a very important treaty because as per the Calcutta Convention, the border between the China and India, that means the Sikkim's regions of India, was clearly demarcated. And further, when the 1994 is when Lhasa Convention was held in the Tibet, it also has affirmed the Calcutta Convention. So that is why, as far as the Sikkim's territorial boundary along with Tibet is concerned, there has been no such what you can call as conflict or dispute between them. Then what happens is India got independence in the year 1947, and then all the princely kingdoms and the states that you have in India, that were roughly 560, they were given the right to determine their status, whether they want to accede to Indian Union, merge with Indian Union, or whether they want to become part of Pakistan. So a lot of Indian states merged with the Union of India. However, some states such as Hyderabad, Jayanagar, we have discussed, Kashmir also, they were having problems in what you can call as issue in merger with the state as such. And that is why we have the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and then the B.N. Rao, who is the constitutional advisor. They both wanted Sikkim to also sign the instrument of accession and merge and integrate with the Indian Union as such. However, this is something that the ruler of Sikkim from the Chogyal dynasty was not very much willing to. Now, also if you try to understand the politics of Sikkim in this regard, basically in the Sikkim during this time, you have 3 different political parties that are representing 3 different groups that used to reside in the Sikkim. In the state you talk about, you have Bhotias, you had Lepchas, and then also you have the Nepalis. As far as the percentage of population is concerned, Nepali had a dominant presence in the Sikkim as such. So basically, the three political parties, that is Sikkim State Congress representing the interest of Bhotias, then you have the Praja Mandal, the PM party that represents the interest of Lepchas, and then you have the Praja Sudhara Samaj, that is PSS, representing the Nepalese interest. So these parties were united and they passed a resolution in December 1947. And in this particular resolution, with the help of general support of public, sentiment of public, they agreed that there should be a popular government established in Sikkim along the same line as the other states of India. Popular government means the government that has to be elected by the people through elections, not a ruler that has been given the control of the state as per the dynastic rules as such. The abolition of landlordism, that was very much prevalent because landlords were nothing but the agents of the kings that used to have a control over the large swaths of territory, and then accession to India as a final goal as such. Now, in this regard, in the year 1950, then a treaty was signed between the government of India and Sikkim, popularly referred as the Indo-Sikkim Treaty. And in the Indo-Sikkim Treaty, Sikkim became what you can call as an Indian protectorate. In the same way how till independence, India was a protectorate of a British kingdom and British empire as such. So overall, what happened? That Sikkim was now, as per this treaty, Sikkim decided and Sikkim agreed that it will lose its sovereign status, and in the matters of defense, external affairs and strategic communication, it will the government of India who will have a final decision making power and the final authority in this regard. Plus, as far as the building of infrastructure in Sikkim is concerned, there are also exclusive rights will be given to the government of India as well. And also, we talk about the citizenship, then Sikkim people will be able to get the passports issued by the government of India, and by using the Indian passport, they will be able to travel outside of the country as such. However, in the internal matters, any matters apart from defense, external affairs and strategic communication, the ruler of Sikkim, that is the Chogyal dynasty and the Chogyal kings, will have a complete autonomy. That is why we are calling it an internal autonomy. However, one more additional clause was added in this particular agreement, that in case of a security threat, because obviously, as you know, that Sikkim is having a boundary with China and Bhutan, there was a risk that China could try to enter into Indian territory in the future just in case. So in that case, the clause gave India overriding powers to take any decisions if the security of India or Sikkim is threatened as such. Now also we have to understand that in the beginning, if you talk about the first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he actually believed that Sikkim should develop and take its course in the future as per its own agency, and this later on his daughter, the other Prime Minister of India, late Srimati Indira Gandhi, also has said that this decision of her father was not a right decision. Rather, Jawaharlal Nehru should have heeded to the general opinion of public in Sikkim and should have allowed Sikkim to become an integral part of India by becoming another state of India. So in the 1960s, several new developments have happened. Unfortunately, we have lost two Prime Ministers of India, the first two Prime Ministers, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and then after a few years, Lal Bahadur Shastri in Tashkent. And at the same time, that time you have the king of Sikkim called as Tasi Namgyal, who belonged to the Chogyal dynasty, and he also died in year 1963. Now, after the death of the last king, it was the Maharaj Kumar Thondup, again from the same dynasty. He succeeded him and he became the next king. And when he became the next king, one of his goal was to make Sikkim more independent state and basically remove the kind of restriction that government of India or the Indo-Sikkim Treaty has imposed upon the state as such. However, this is something that was not very much popular. This kind of opinion was not very much popular among the public. Public wanted to have a popular government that they should elect on the basis of election. So also because by looking at the mood of the general public in Sikkim, government of India understand that this decision of the king to make Sikkim more autonomous, more independent is something that is not acceptable, and by 1970s, the government of India decided to back the pro-democracy forces in Sikkim, and the major leader here was the Kazi Dorji. Kazi Dorji was the leader of Sikkim National Congress as such. Now, in this context, as per the book written by GBS Sidhu, that is called as Sikkim, the Dawn of Democracy, one important event we have to understand here, that an Indian delegation actually went and travelled to Gangtok, that is the capital of Sikkim, in 1973 as head of a small roti. Now, As far as the king is concerned, the main objective of coming of this delegation was to inform the king about the Chinese activity in this area and how they can threaten the sovereignty, unity and dignity of Sikkim as well as India as such. However, as per the later report, it was realized that the main goal of this team as given by the government of India was to liaise with the Sikkim Congress. As we have discussed, Sikkim Congress was led by Kazi Dorji, provide them with assistance and advice in the final by then aim of Sikkim's merger with India. That means the Union Government of India also wanted that now it is a ripe time for the Sikkim to become another state of India as such. And also this all is happening in the same year when there is a growth in the anti-monarchy protest. When the people of Sikkim, as you can see, began to protest against the king, they wanted to remove the king, and also they began to surround the palaces, and thousands of protesters, and the number began to grow. Now, because of this development, the king became very anxious and he asked the support from New Delhi, that is the government of India, that I have threat on my life, and that is why Indian troops arrived after the monarch was left with no choice but to ask for the assistance as such. Now, after the arrival of Indian troops and the government agencies, a tripartite agreement, tripartite means the three parties when they are signing the agreement. So, for example, here on one side you have the government of India, Union Government of India we can say, and the second party here was obviously the Namgyal king, and the third party was the political parties and the leaders of the state of Sikkim. So, these three signed an agreement where it was decided that Sikkim will undergo political reforms same on the line of the other state as such. And after this particular year, eventful year of 1973, we can say, in the following year 1974, again a fresh election was held where the Sikkim Congress won with popularity with huge majority, and Kazi Dorji was the leader who got the chance or opportunity to become the leader of Sikkim in this regard. Now also in the next year, the 1975, a referendum was held. Referendum is slightly different from election because in election you choose the candidates who you want to represent you in the parliament or the state legislative assembly. In the referendum you have to select that whether you are in favor of a certain event or not. So for example, here the question that was put forward against the people of Sikkim was that whether they want to abolish the monarchy and join India or not. Now here in this particular referendum, almost 2/3 of the people of Sikkim, eligible voters we can say, they have participated, and at the end of referendum, majority of them were in favor of abolishing the monarchy and joining the India as such. And this is something that was taken into consideration by the political parties and the government of India, and thus the Ministry of External Affairs then put forward a constitutional amendment bill, that is 36th constitutional amendment bill in the Lok Sabha, and it recognized Sikkim as a state in the Union of India. Further, this bill was sent to the President of India, the then President of India, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad, and he then assented to the bill, and thus the bill became a law coming into effect on May 16th, 1975. Now, interestingly, as far as China's stance on Sikkim is concerned, till 2003, China did not clarify its position whether it considers Sikkim as part of India or not. But by 2003, China, when it published its official map, it has clearly stated and shown that Sikkim is part of China. So, Sikkim is part of actually India. So, the dispute that we have along the border largely lies along the Aksai Chin region on the northern sector, and then you have the entire Arunachal Pradesh being claimed by China in the eastern sector. So, as far as the Sikkim's position is concerned, China has clarified that it considers it and believes it to be the integral part of India as such. So that's all about the story, how Sikkim became a state of India and the overall brief history since the 17th century earliest. That is all for this particular video. If you like the video, please hit like button, share it with your aspirants, as well as subscribe to the channel for more such content. Thank you very much.